Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome back to Fundamentally Mormon and Zion's Redemption Radio Network. Today we're going to be reading Chapter 10 of the Church and the Gospel, pages 127 to 146. The title of the chapter is United Order. We'll dedicate the program and then we'll get right into the reading. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. We ask thee this day, Father, that as we dedicate this time unto thee, that thou wilt forgive us of our sins and our transgressions, that we might have thy Spirit to be with us more fully. We ask thee, Father, to inspire us with thy thoughts, that we might consider the different things about what the topic is that we're discussing today, even that of the United Order. We know that in the scripture it talks about when a people who will live all that you have commanded actually live it, that they will establish Zion below, and that Zion above will come down out of heaven with the church of the firstborn. Father, we desire to qualify to be part of those people, that we might have thy blessings, the blessings of Zion and the blessings of the church of the firstborn upon the earth, that we might be worthy to be part of Adam and Andayaman, that we might be worthy to come into thy presence and to return with Jesus in the clouds, or to be caught up when he returns to the earth. We desire knowledge to help others of our brothers and sisters to understand these things, that they might be worthy as well and strive towards becoming a Zion people and part of an elect community. We love thee, Father, and we look forward to thy kingdom upon the earth as it is in heaven. We thank thee for thy Son, Jesus Christ, who paid for our sins and transgressions, that we might come back into thy presence. We love thee, Father, but we know that the love that you have for us far exceeds anything that we could ever even possibly imagine. But to be in your presence is the greatest blessing that we have to look forward to. We love thee, and we ask for thy blessings to be upon us as we dedicate this time unto thee and the discussion of United Orders. And we do these things in the name of Messiah. Amen. United Order, Chapter 10 of the Church and the Gospel, pages 127 to 146. Come out of Babylon. One of the most noticeable differences between Mormonism and other religions is its close relationship between the spiritual and the temporal. Mormonism is not just another ethereal, mystic, or philosophical religious system, but rather a practical, down-to-earth religion that can deal with dollars and cents, butters and beans, parcels of real estate, or heavenly kingdoms. Because a religion that cannot help the poor temporally has little power to help them spiritually. Mormonism embraces both practicality and spirituality. In a doctoral dissertation by Dean D. McBrien, it was noticed that in 112 revelations to Joseph Smith, 88 dealt in part or wholly with economic matters. This is not out of harmony with the Gospel of Matthew, Mark, and Luke, for one verse in every 6 deals with the money question. Out of the 29 parables of Christ, 16 of them mention the Christian and his money. It is not riches alone, but the lust for riches that overcomes the human will. The love of money is the root of all evil. 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 10. So when men idolize riches, they often condescend to evil means to obtain them. Page 128 at 4%. A major mission for the Latter-day Saint is not only to teach, but to live an example of correct spiritual and temporal principles. Nearly every law of God has become foreign to our society, and if men do not rise up to protect themselves from the evil schemes and financial messes of the world, they must suffer the fate of Babylon when she falls. If we live according to the traditions, customs, and regulations of a Gentile society, how can we expect to gain a different reward? President John Taylor describes our corrupt society by saying, quote, "The fact of the matter is, we are all of us on a highway to financial or temporal ruin. The world is going to the devil just as fast as it can go. Corruption, fraud, chicanery, deception, evil, and iniquity of every kind prevail, so that you cannot trust a man in any place. You cannot rely upon his word. You cannot rely upon any instrument of writing that he gets up, and there is nothing you can rely upon. We as a people have come out from Babylon, but we have brought a great amount of these infernal principles with us, and we have been grabbing, grasping, pinching, squeezing, hauling, horning, and hooking on every side, and it seems as though every man was for himself and the devil for us all. That is about the position we are in today. We want a change in these things." Journal of Discourses, Volume 17, page 449. Scriptural examples. How do saints get out of this frantic, wicked, and idiotic system of their seeking for wealth? It is necessary to refer to the Scriptures for the answer of our temporal as well as our spiritual problems. Page 129 at 9%. In the first book of the Bible, there is an excellent example of a people who had temporal and spiritual success. Quote, "Thus Enoch, the seventh from Adam, instituted an order of things among his people in their business and financial relations, which so revolutionized their temporalities that they had no poor among them, and all rejoiced together in equal hope of life and exaltation offered to them in the gospel of Jesus Christ, the only begotten of the Father." End quote. Compendium by Richards and Little, page 264. This was a doctrine of Christ and was also established in the New Testament. Quote, "And the multitude of them that believed were of one heart and of one soul. Neither said any of them that aught of the thing which he possessed was his own, but they had all things common. Neither was there any among them that lacked. For as many as were possessors of lands or houses sold them and brought the price of the thing that were sold and laid them down at the apostles' feet. And distribution was made unto every man according as he had need." Acts chapter 4, verses 32 34 and 35. This is a clear description of the gospel of Christ, functioning in the temporal affairs of the Christians. From this graphic illustration, it is evident by the comparison that the thousands contending Christian churches of today do not practice the gospel of Christ. For an extended period of time, Christ taught the Nephites personally and gave them his commandments. After receiving these teachings directly from the Lord, quote, they taught and did minister one to another, and they had all things in common among them, every man dealing justly one with another. 3 Nephi chapter 26, verse 19, page 130, at 14%. The work of their missionaries extended to every portion of the land and to every class of people. It was a magnificent missionary effort, and the results were astounding. The people were all converted unto the Lord upon all the face of the land, both Nephites and Lamanites, and there were no contentions and disputations among them. And every man did deal justly one with another, and they had all things in common among them. Therefore there were not rich and poor, bond and free, but they were all made free and partakers of the heavenly gift. 4 Nephi chapter 2 and 3. The United Order in operation before going into the history of the United Order in this dispensation. Let's try to get a better understanding of this process whereby men consecrated themselves and their goods. We can take a walk through as though we were doing it ourselves. A man gives to the bishop or designated authority all that he has as a consecration or a sacrifice to the Lord. The bishop then considers the talents, gifts, and abilities of the man and designates a stewardship for him to manage. He may receive more or less than he consecrated. His stewardship will most likely be coordinated with his profession, a mason, carpenter, farmer, etc. The Lord says that the bishop should give to people their portions, every man equal according to his family, according to his circumstances and his wants and needs. Doctrine and Covenants, section 51, verse 3. Let's consider how this applies to the different people, every man receiving. Number 1, equal according to his family. A single man would naturally require only 1/10 of the amount of food. We're on page 131 at 19%. Clothing, etc. Than a man with 10 in his family, yet it would be an equal portion. Number 2, equal according to his circumstances. If the order is blessed with great wealth, then they all share equally the same good fortune in their circumstances. If they are in an order that is poor, then they all share equally in those circumstances or conditions. Number 3, equal according to his wants. A man who is a farmer would want a tractor, plow, harrow, truck, and other farm equipment. A carpenter would want saws, planers, lathes, etc. Though each man would want different things, they would be equal in their wants or needs for their stewardships. Number 4, equal according to his needs. Some may need a wheelchair or glasses, more blankets or books for education, etc. Each would be getting different items, but equal according to their needs. Neither the bishop nor anyone else had complete say as to how everything should be done. The Lord had said that all these things were to be done by common consent. Doctrine and Covenants, section 26, verse 2. This was the Lord's method of preventing priestcraft. Nothing was spent, given, or taken except by the common consent of the United Order, either by the individuals themselves or through their elected officers. And there shall not any part of it be used or taken out of the treasury only by the voice and common consent of the order. Doctrine and Covenants, section 104, verse 71. The moment some people receive community funds without the consent of the people, it either becomes a priestcraft or a dictatorship. Page 132 at 24%. The Lord calls this distribution of wealth the law of my gospel. Doctrine and Covenants, section 104, verse 18. This was considered to be another spiritual law, just as any other laws of the gospel. This system was not only a law and a protection with spiritual blessings accompanying it, but it was a very practical program. 10 farms united would need only a couple of tractors instead of 10. The same would apply to tools, trucks, and everything else right down to the breakfast table. Said Brigham Young, quote, "Instead of each one of the 100 women getting up in the morning to cook breakfast for fathers and large boys, that they may go to their labor while the little children are crying and needing attention, breakfast for the whole can be prepared by 5 or 10 women with a man or two to help." Journal of Discourses, volume 17, page 44. So basically, it's just like they're coming together to help feed the community instead of their own households, and instead of the mom in a family having to prepare all the food for just the family, you've got less women doing more work to actually feed the people. It's all part of the stewardship program. So there would be individuals who are cooks and dishwashers and whatnot, and they're helping each other, and that's their stewardship. So anyway, United Orders in our dispensation. Bible scholars and preachers have all recognized that extreme wealth and extreme poverty are a social injustice and also a moral sin. By the year 1830, there were many communes or social organizations trying to establish some sort of common property arrangement. Most of these creations had already failed or were about to. Now the Mormons would have a chance. But a cooperative society in which things are shared in common requires many to surrender the control of their purse strings. This is a tender spot for man. Some men will put their eternal destiny into the arms of flesh with a recklessness that would astound dictators. But when their pocketbooks are to be assessed, they speedily retreat. In 1830, the Lord proposed to give this commandment of all things in common to the Mormons. Within a few months, the Lord revealed, quote, and this is actually on page 133 at 29%, but here's the quote, "But it is not given that one man should possess that which is above another, wherefore the world lieth in sin." Doctrine and Covenants, section 49, verse 20. "For if ye are not equal in earthly things, ye cannot be equal in obtaining heavenly things." Doctrine and Covenants, section 78, verse 6. The Lord gave revelations, and the prophet Joseph conveyed to the saints these instructions on living the United Order. So it began in the early stages of the church in Kirtland, Ohio. However, many of the saints in Kirtland were not able to keep those covenants and stewardships because of their lust for personal wealth. George Albert Smith explained, quote, "I moved into Kirtland with 5 families. The question immediately arose, where shall we settle? Why right here in Kirtland? The Lord designs to make this a stronghold for a few years. And here we are to settle, which was the counsel of the prophet. The very first thing that occurred after this advice was that 2 out of the 5 came to the conclusion that they had better go to the neighboring towns because they thought they could gain some temporary advantage. To Chagrin, they went, in opposition to the advice of the prophet, and in a few weeks they were all in darkness, and not long after they were numbered with the enemies of Zion, and were soon using all their power for the destruction of the saints. He that gathereth not with us scattereth abroad. Joseph, the prophet, told us to go to work and build up the cities of Zion, not to build up strange cities. Journal of Discourses, Volume 12, page 150. This personal lust for wealth could affect both church members and leaders alike. Brigham Young recalled, quote, when the 12 apostles were chosen in this dispensation, they were told not to labor with their hands, but to preach the gospel to the nations of the earth. Some of them, before a year had elapsed, were engaging in trade. They became merchants and they apostatized. Millennial Star, volume 30, page 626. And by the way, we're on page 134 at 34%. Thus, on April 10th, 1834, the United Order at Kirtland was dissolved. Yet only 13 days later, the Lord gave a revelation to Joseph Smith concerning the Order of Enoch. See Doctrine and Covenants, section 104. The whole revelation was devoted to this United Order effort. The Lord seemed determined to have this principle lived, even if most of the people didn't. It began by saying, verily I say unto you, my friends, I give unto you counsel and a commandment concerning all the properties which belong to the order which I commanded to be organized and established, to be a united order, and an everlasting order for the benefit of my church and for the salvation of men until I come. Doctrine and Covenants, section 104, verse 1. See, and that's why I say that the United Order is a lifeboat. Like, we don't have United Orders in the church, even though there's supposedly 16 million members and billions of dollars in the bank. But it's the United Order that's the lifeboat. And now we're coming into another economic crash. Just the other day, the stock market crashed over 1,000 points. It recovered some, and then it fell greater. England is in civil war right now. They're trying to keep this from you. We're having all kinds of problems economically and financially in the Western markets and in the Western world. Things are coming to a head. That it's like it's too late to build the lifeboat once the ship is sinking, and this ship is sinking, and who knows how long the ballast tanks or the sump pumps are going to be able to keep the water from overtaking the ship completely. But this ship is sinking, and the United Orders are supposed to be the lifeboats, and we don't have any. And it's because of the disobedience of the people, because Jesus Christ never recanted on, United Orders. He never said, oh, never mind, we don't need to worry about that. Oh, you guys did it in the 1800s, and with the exception of a few large, very prosperous United Orders, all of the other ones failed. So don't worry about doing that. We'll do that in the millennium. Of course we will. But it's for the salvation of the saints to go through the tribulation time periods that are coming now. It's a lifeboat, people. Speculation took hold of the people in America, and the saints were not exempt. By 1837, the country and the saints experienced financial chaos. Elder B.H. Roberts summarized the reason for the great apostasy and failure of the saints in Kirtland. Quote, "They had entered into the spirit of reckless speculation, which for several years had been rife throughout the United States, and which expressed itself chiefly in the land speculation and in excessive banking, culminating in the disastrous financial panic of 1837. That is B.H. Roberts, who wrote The Correlated History of the Church, Volume 1, page 398. The result of financial panic was the millions of dollars throughout the area were lost, and the sheriff was a frequent visitor at Kirtland, and mortgage foreclosures followed each other in surprising frequency. Correlated History of the Church, Volume 1, page 407. So we're on page 135 at 39%. Kirtland became uprooted, and apostasy reached its highest point during these times. If the saints had adhered to the law of consecration as the Lord had commanded in 1831, the catastrophe of 1837 could have been avoided. While the saints in Kirtland were attempting to live a united order, the Lord gave a revelation concerning a land of promise, which would have no curse when the Lord cometh. The place had not been revealed, but if they would gather to Ohio, they would be informed of this Zion. Later it was revealed that the New Jerusalem, or Holy City, the capital of the government of God, would be located in Jackson County, Missouri. The Lord also revealed that this Zion could not be established except by obedience to the law of consecration. Doctrine and Covenants, section 58, verses 35 and 36. Another united order was attempted in Missouri, and the prophet dedicated the site for the Temple of the New Jerusalem at Independence. Doctrine and Covenants, section 84, verses 2 through 4. With land so cheap and with so many Mormons moving into the land, making it more valuable, many of the saints took advantage of the old Gentile philosophy to buy cheap and sell high. They were remote in this land speculation, by the way, which Joseph Smith repeatedly told them not to do, but they didn't listen to him because they were more concerned about getting rich. Even though it is not given for one man to own that which is above another, wherefore the whole world lieth in sin. And this condemnation was even among, like, the leaders of the church that were doing it. So they were motivated by the temporal profit rather than gaining an eternal inheritance. The Lord saw this and warned them that the rebellious shall be cut off out of the land of Zion and shall be sent away and shall not inherit the land. Doctrine and Covenants, section 64, verse 35. Because he decreed that my law shall be kept on this land, Doctrine and Covenants, section 58, verse 19, the prophet Joseph Smith wrote a letter to the saints in Missouri and warned them also that, quote, if Zion will not purify herself so as to be approved in all things in his sight, he will seek another people, for his work will go on until Israel is gathered up, and they who will not hear his voice must expect to feel his wrath. Doctrine and Covenants, section 1, Doctrinal History of the Church, section 1, volume 1, page 316. All of this was given as a warning to the saints at a time when everything was peaceful in Jackson County, Missouri. The saints were greedy after the temporal things, and within 2.5 years of their settling in the land of Zion, the words of these prophecies were fulfilled. Since the saints failed to keep the law of the united order, they suffered the consequences, and the Lord chastised them. Quote, "Behold, they have not learned to be obedient to the things which I require at their hands, but are full of all manner of evil, and do not impart of their substance, as becometh saints, to the poor and the afflicted among them, and are not united according to the union required by the law of the celestial kingdom." Doctrine and Covenants, section 105, verses 3 and 4. The saints were their own worst enemy because of their own weaknesses and faults. The Lord allowed them to suffer the persecutions and plunderings that resulted in Missouri. Elder George A. Smith reported that the statements in Jackson County were commenced on the principle of the law of consecration. They were, however, at that period professed Latter-day Saints who did not see proper to abide by this law of consecration. They thought it was their privilege to look after number one, and some of them, believing that Zion was to become a very great city, and that being the center stake of it, they purchased tracts of land in the vicinity of with the intention of keeping them until Zion became the beauty and joy of the whole earth, when they thought they could sell their land and make themselves very rich. It was probably owing to this, in part, that the Lord suffered the enemies of Zion to rise up against her. Journal of Discourses, Volume 17, page 59. So, I actually have to get ready. I got 20 minutes until I have to start my whole day. I'm just laying here in my sleeper on my mattress, reading this in my air-conditioned semi-truck, and I've got 20 minutes to take all my window shades out and put them under my mattress, and then fold my mattress up and I have a table and chairs in the back. The mattress folds up, and I put all that up, and then I've got a refrigerator with a freezer in the truck, and I will take the frozen water bottles out of my freezer and put them in my cooler, and put drinks in there so that when I'm driving I can just reach over and grab a nice cold soda or bottled water, or I actually survive on drinkable yogurt. I don't like to eat. Like, I'll snack on some things, but all I want is something that fills my stomach for when I am hungry. And a lot of times, if I rely upon solid foods, even though I can cook food in the truck, I will not eat all day long, and then I'll get sick, because my doctor said that my stomach acids, I build too much stomach acid, and so if I don't keep something in my stomach, I'll actually throw up stomach acid a lot, and that happens more often than I'd like to admit it. When I wake up in the morning, if I don't eat the night before and I wake up in the morning, I will throw up. So, but I don't like eating solid foods when I'm on the road. And I do enjoy food, though. I mean, I think I wish it was a hobby rather than a requirement. But anyway, I drink these drinkable yogurts, and that solves my problem of having to heat up or cook or whatever. So I have a cooler in between the passenger seat and the driver's seat, and then I do have some, I'll have some cookies or something, or pretzels or whatever. But anyway, that is all to say that my scheduled appointment to get loaded on this well, to load this crude oil, is in now 17 minutes, and I got to get everything ready because once I start loading, I'm not supposed to get in the truck to do a bunch of stuff. I've got to watch the hoses, make sure none of the hoses leak or fail, which happens sometimes. And I've got to monitor things. I've got to do paperwork. I've got to do a bunch of things. I'm always busy when I'm working. So I won't have time to read the next part until later. But like I said, we're at 50%. And when we come back, we'll start on page 137. So if I can make this into a live radio program, which I do from time to time, and you are listening at the time of the live broadcast, the guest call-in number is 917-889-8827. That's 917-889-8827. And if you're listening live, there is a chat room at blogtalkradio.com/fundamentally Mormon. So, and also, if you're listening on Blog Talk Radio, you can also find this podcast by searching Zion's Redemption Radio Network on iTunes. So, all right, well, thank you for listening, everyone, and I'll go do my thing, and you'll listen to this recording later, and then maybe we can have a conversation about it. Also, there are conversations being had at Facebook in my group LDS Last Days Prophecy and Gospel Discussions. I will be posting this podcast with all of the text for the podcast in that place. LDS Last Days Prophecy and Gospel Discussions. And currently, let me just pull it up real quick. There is 10,700 people. Let me see if that's right. Oh, oops. Let's see. Yeah, 10,700 members. It's a private group. It's called LDS Last Days Prophecy and Gospel Discussions. I am the lead admin, and my wife helps, and I've got some other friends help doing admin work and moderating. Now, this group is for all who believe that Joseph Smith is a true prophet, no matter what church affiliations they have. So you're going to have the majority of the members in the group are from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. There are members of churches, of the churches that came out of Nauvoo. There are breakoffs of the Eastern or Prairie Saint churches and Prairie Saints, so the reorganized church. You've got Bickertonites and like Strangites and whatever. You also have breakoffs from the LDS Church who are Brighamites, these fundamentalists and stuff. It's for everyone who believes that Joseph Smith was a true prophet. It's not just for the Brighamite Mormons in Salt Lake City, Utah. So if you do enter, there are a lot of people who don't read that in the description of the group, and then they get mad because this is for LDS people, not you. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is for all Latter-day Saints, and you're not the only ones. So I am talking to the house of God and all of its branches. So, all right, well, I got to get going because I've got 12 minutes to get everything ready and start my loading process. So thank you for listening. Guest caller number is 917-889-8827. Welcome back to Zion's Redemption Radio Network. Today we're going to be reading part 2 of chapter 10 of the Church and the Gospel. The title of the chapter is United Order. We'll be on page 137 at 50%. The Missourians rose up against the Mormons and burned out 203 Mormon homes and burned or destroyed many grain fields and granaries. They ripped out fences, tore down their printing office and other businesses, whipped, beat, and raped the Mormons. Over $318,000 had been paid for the land in Missouri, but all of it was lost to the mobs. The prophet Joseph Smith gave a speech at Far West, which was not only a warning to the saints then, but a prophetic warning to the saints in our day. Quote, "Brethren, we are gathered to this beautiful land to build up Zion. But since I have been here, I have perceived a spirit of selfishness. Covetousness exists in the hearts of the saints. Here are those beginning to spread out, buying up all the land they are able to, thinking to lay a foundation for themselves, only looking to their individual families. Now I want to tell you that Zion cannot be built up in such a way. I see signs put out, beer signs, speculative schemes are being introduced. This is the way of the world, Babylon indeed. And I tell you in the name of the God of Israel, if there is not repentance, you will be broken and scattered from this land." End quote, Edward Stevenson's autobiography, page 40. The Lord himself warned the saints, quote, "Zion cannot be built up unless it is by the principles of the law of the celestial kingdom. Otherwise, I cannot receive her unto myself, and and my people must needs be chastened until they learn obedience, if it needs be, by the things which they suffer." Doctrine and Covenants, section 105, verses 5 and 6. Persecutions continued in Far West, and the Mormons were driven out again, leaving nearly $500,000 in property and goods. In January of 1839, the saints left for Illinois to make another settlement. However, for the next several years, the saints were unable to reestablish the United Order, and we're on page 138 at 56%. Because the saints failed to keep the commandments of the Lord, they were forced more than once to leave their homes, their lands, and their temples. Soon, they even had to leave the boundaries of the United States to wander in the desert wilderness to try again to live the gospel the way the Lord had revealed it. The barren wilderness of Utah was a means of purification. Those who wanted to live in a better climate, more prosperous conditions, with an easier means of livelihood, were quick to leave this desert oasis. Some headed for the gold fields of California. Others sold their possession and joined the numerous caravans headed to the West Coast. After 20 years in the desert, a successful effort in getting the people into the order came with the establishment of a mercantile cooperative. In 1868, the first steps were taken towards a Zion's Cooperative Mercantile Institution, or ZCMI. Like, I remember that when I was a kid. ZCMI, it was like a big department store, actually. Like, when I was a kid. I mean, like, I think it was a lot more than that when it was first created. But anyway. But that was ZCMI, and other branches of the cooperative order were established in many of the settlements as stock companies. Everyone was given the opportunity to buy stock with cash, produce, or labor. Business was booming for the new ZCMI, but it was a death blow to many of the other merchants, including some of the Mormon stores. But Brigham said the cooperative and united order would serve a better purpose. Henceforth, it must be to let this trade alone. So this is Brigham Young. Henceforth, it must be to let this trade alone and save our means for other purposes than to enrich outsiders. We must use it to spread the gospel and to gather the poor, build temples, sustain our poor, build houses for ourselves, and convert this means to a better use than to give it to those who will use it against us. Journal of Discourses, Volume 12, page 301. We're on page 139 at 61%. Bitter conflict grew between the Mormons and the non-Mormons during the 1860s and the 1870s. The government now took the position that mobs had formerly taken. Not only did they send a whole army out west to put down the Mormons, that's Johnston's army, but they began to hatch up numerous and unconstitutional laws to persecute, religiously uproot, and economically destroy the Mormon people. These were the forces and conditions that drove the Mormon people into an economic independence and the birth of the United Order again amongst its people. Another event that helped the germination of the order was the great national pandemic and depression of 1873. In 1872, Brigham Young delivered a sermon in which he may have been referring to this imminent depression. Quote, "If Babylon should happen to tip over so that we could not reach out and gather the necessities of life, we should be in a bad condition. I want to put you in mind of these things. It is my duty to say to the Latter-day Saints that they should take measure to sustain themselves." Okay, I had to pause it for a minute to tell my son to be quiet because everybody's starting to get up. It's actually 9:10 a.m. on Saturday morning, August 10th, 2024, and I'm sitting in the living room because my back hurts, and I'm sitting in my chair because that's the only place where my back starts to feel better is when I sit in my lazy boy chair. I know, it's a little tangent. Hold on. Okay, my 5-year-old son wants to say hi, so.
Hi.
I usually do this recording stuff in a more private area, but whatever. Anyway, and I know I'm going off on tangents again. I do that. I actually fell out of my truck this week. And you know what? I will talk more about that when I'm done with the reading, because I'm not going to do this tangent thing like that. So, but I fell like off the top step. I was cleaning my truck out, and after 5 days of work, and it was like, I think it was like 5:30 or 6 in the morning, and I was standing on the top step. I'd worked all day long, 14-hour day, and for some reason I thought I was on the bottom step. I don't even know. So I was stepping back like I was stepping on the ground, but there was no ground there. And I went flying back, probably about, I guess I landed about, my head landed about 6 or 7 feet from where I started falling. I hit my back and I hit my head pretty hard, and my lanyard that was holding my phone and my H2S hydrogen sulfide monitor, which I have to wear in the oil field, along with my hat and my Bluetooth headset that I was listening to a podcast on, flew about another 5 to 7 feet away from where my head hit, and I just laid there, and I put my hands back to catch myself. Now, if you know, I had surgery on both elbows and both hands recently, and they're still healing. So I have the stitches out now. I took the stitches out of my left arm like a week ago or something like that. But I put my hands back to catch myself, and oh my gosh, the pain in the palm of my hands and in my elbows. Ow. Anyway, it took me about 10 minutes to get up, but I'll talk more about that at the end of the reading if you want to know about that. All right, getting back into the reading. Hopefully my kids will be quiet and stop talking. My daughters and my son. So my younger daughters and my son, they all slept on the couches in the living room. We got 3 couches, or 2 couches, 1 love seat, and my chair. So, all right, Arius, stop talking. Okay. They should take measure to sustain themselves. They should lay a foundation for feeding and clothing themselves. End quote. Journal of Discourses, Volume 15, page 158. Within a year after this sermon, Babylon did tip over. This national depression hit the United States and reached its bottom by 1875 and didn't turn around until 1879. It was during these 6 years that the people all over the country were trying to find ways of financial relief. On January 11, 1874, Brigham Young began to take active measures for establishing the United Order among the Mormons. At a meeting of the home of Erastus Snow in St. George, Robert Gardner gathered a list of about a dozen names of people who were willing to enter the order. Brigham said it was enough for a start. On February 9th, Gardner was set apart as president over the new order, and we're on page 140 at 66%. On February 15th, in a general meeting, Brigham Young told them it was time for all the saints to enter into that law. This was the beginning of a major change in the church, resulting in at least 220 different united orders. See Building the City of God by Arrington, Fox, and May, pages 414 to 419. Brigham Young said he had been instructed by the Lord to establish a united order among the saints. Thus saith the Lord unto my servant Brigham. Oh, this is interesting. Kim.
Yeah, it's to Brigham.
It's to Brigham.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Like he got revelation through Brigham.
A revelation.
But he said the heavens were brass to him, so I don't know.
No, that was Heber J. Grant.
Oh, okay. I was like a little skeptical.
He did say that he had never seen an angel or the Lord.
They probably can't even hear me on the radio show like you're talking to me.
My wife's like, I don't know if you guys can hear it. You probably can, because this isn't I'm not recording it on my headphones. I'm recording it on my iPhone, and that doesn't have the dynamic voice, whatever, noise canceling.
Yeah.
Anyway, thus saith the Lord unto my servant Brigham, call ye upon the inhabitants of Zion to organize themselves in the order of Enoch, and in the new and everlasting covenant, according to the order of heaven, for the furtherance of my kingdom upon the earth, for the perfecting of the saints, for the salvation of the living and the dead. You can accommodate yourselves by calling this a new revelation if you choose. It is no new revelation, but it is the express word and will of God to this people. And that was delivered in
It's not new revelation, it says.
1874, 3 years before his death. Journal of Discourses, Volume 17, page 154. So it's not new revelation because Jesus had already given plenty of revelation in the Doctrine and Covenants about doing this, and the people were not doing this. So I don't know. I don't think it would be hard to create this revelation about a whole cloth if that was the case. It doesn't sound like the other revelations. But, hey, maybe Brigham Young really did, because we know John Taylor supposedly did. We know Wilford Woodruff supposedly did. But those revelations are not canonized. And the church actually tries to, hide those revelations, the John Taylor ones at least, and the Wilford Woodruff ones at least. Let's see here. I don't know. I'll just continue reading. Hey, Arius. Shush. I'm recording. Stop trying to tickle your sister. The central theme of their preaching was both spiritual and temporal. The saints were told to be self-sustaining and not import or buy anything that they could make themselves. They were not to have any poor among them. Everyone could labor in some way. The Order of Enoch spread in Utah, Wyoming, and Idaho to include the towns of Bear Lake, Montpelier, Paris, Liberty, Ovid, Bloomington, St. Charles, Fish Haven, Laketown, Woodruff, Randolph, Almy, Malad. Wow. Malad. It's been a while since I've been there. Clarkston, Mantua, and many others. It's interesting. I forgot something I was going to say during the last quote, the Brigham Young quote. I actually have the Order of Enoch, the book of the Order of Enoch, in my library, and it was actually received by the use of a seer stone. I should read that sometime. Anyway, continuing on. But every order had its time of trouble and sorrow. The strain of management or else weaknesses in the members themselves were too severe for most of the orders. All of them were operating with different degrees of success or failure, and we're on page 141 at 72%. Some members had gone into it with a complete consecration. Others still had private interests and businesses. Some consecrated all their time to the order, while others were only half into it. Hold on. Hey, you guys, if you guys can't stop talking, you can go clean your room. You can go clean your room. I don't need to hear your excuses, okay? All right.